Hey survivors, welcome back to another episode of Insta-Death Survivors Support Group. It's me, Brian, your ever-eager explorer of all games narrative, and we're back with Jeremy Morgan of Long Dog Games, here to talk about Pericle, the Gathering Darkness. But more broadly today, we want to talk about why we play TTRPGs in the first place. So Jeremy, let's just start there.
Yeah.
Why do you play role-playing games?
Like anyone listening, there's many different reasons. First one that comes to mind is like, oh, it's fun, right? It's cool. I get to be a wizard, or I get to, create these civilizations for players to wander through. But, at a deeper level, and the most important level to me, is it's almost a form of therapy in a way. The escapism and the depth at which you can delve into these things, for me at least, helps deal with stress, anxiety, things like that. It kind of resets me to a degree. And, I think any sort of RPG or engaging storyline, I think they all have their own sort of medicinal value to them in a way.
Yeah. So tell me about that. Like, how do you tend to dive into RPGs? Is it all about play? Is it about reading the rule books, the setting books? Is it always with a group? Are you playing solo games? Tell me about your sort of approach to diving in and getting that relaxation hit.
Yeah, no, sure. So, being the author of the Gathering Darkness campaign, it's usually in the form of creation. Say I'm stressing about whatever, or say I'm anxious about X, or maybe if I don't even know what I'm anxious about, right? There's little room in my head to worry about things, even at a subconscious level, whenever I'm creating a runic alphabet that the elves once used in the ruins of Thalassus, this ancient sunken city that, I'm so many levels deep at this point.
You're absorbed, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And so that really helps me from a creator's point of view. I'm a little bit of a forever DM, but I enjoy the role of a game master. And, whenever I do that, I hardly ever run anything as is. I always throw in tweaks and stuff. I'm running a Curse of Strahd campaign right now with my wife and some of our best buddies. And this is the second time for a couple of them. And so I've changed so much stuff, and so just last night we played, and earlier in the day, I was just kind of game prepping in my off time. And, again, same sort of thing. I guess it's still kind of a creation bent to it, but also playing or reading. Maybe Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft isn't the most settling thing to read in the world, but, Treasury of Dragons, I'm staring at it right now. Again, it's so D&D oriented. But as a kid, my first experience with fantasy, besides the Hobbit book, is I was absolutely obsessed with Choose Your Own Adventures. I don't remember the titles. I just know that it was a sci-fi one, and if you took a wrong turn at some angle, which I did a couple times, you would meet these like gelatinous pug-faced aliens. I don't know, somebody's got to know what I'm talking about who's listening. You're like, oh, there's that one random one. Anyways, I used to read those all the time in elementary school, and that was really, really nice. That was a way for me to just relax in class. I could get my fantasy on, right, in the middle of the school day. But again, it was also, kind of my first experience with like escapism and how healing that can be.
Yeah, very cool. So folks, if you are listening and you know what the gelatinous pug-faced monsters or whatever
Please.
you can mention Instadeath Pod or go over to anchor.fm/instadeath/message and leave a voice message. Let us know what the gelatinous pug-faced monsters are. If there's any audience that's going to know...
it would be this one.
It's this one, because I have listeners who have probably read every single Choose Your Own Adventure book out there.
Wonderful.
So you never know. We might be able to answer it for you, Jeremy.
My hidden secret lifelong question.
So my own experience is that I also deal with anxiety and ADHD. I'm very distractible, but also hyper-focus. And what I find is that I tend to prefer GM-less games and solo games. The solo part is probably has a lot to do with just the pandemic situation and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And I also tend to like, this is a weird one, but I tend to like games that don't really have much going on in terms of a setting. And the reason for that is I find the pressure of things like D&D settings books to be, man, I have to be an expert in this setting or something like that, right?
Sure.
Or when there's like a major IP or something like, ooh, if I want to play the Star Wars role-playing game, like I better know Star Wars pretty well.
Yep.
And that's just too much pressure for me, right? So instead, I tend to like things that leave a lot open for improvisational kind of stuff. And that for me is the therapy. Some of my favorite moments in life, not even related to just RPGs, are like kind of those sort of like whiteboard collaborations, if you will, right? Where you're just all kind of jamming on an idea and like, let me tell you my terrible idea, and then you make it a slightly better idea, and then I like make it an even better idea, those sorts of things. That's really my jam. And RPGs, even when you're playing alone, can have a tendency to do that because the game prompts you into directions that you didn't expect to go. It's kind of, in some ways, giving up some of that control is a way to create, even in the act of play, right? And that's what I like. It's like you said, the escapism piece. You forget your worries. You go into that hyper focus mode, and you just like, you don't feel bad about it. Because sometimes I do. That's the downside. I also, like you said, you create a lot and you're in what you're doing. And I've designed a number of like really small micro RPGs that I've released to patrons and on itch and that sort of thing. And the thing is, this is the dark side of it, perhaps. When I get one of these ideas in my head and it won't let go, there's a couple days where like I'm not really good at listening to my wife. And it causes problems, to be frank.
Sure.
I don't know if you ever experience any of that where you're just like so in something that you're not elsewhere.
Yeah, no, definitely. One of my so I have a 15-month-old baby girl. Her name's Emma. She's amazing. I love her with all my heart. It is, however, a new challenge to the whole thing, because I watch Emma in the mornings and I love every second of it while my wife works. And then whenever she stops working, then I work, and we kind of trade off Emma. And like it's a great system on paper, but creation is so fickle. You know what I mean? Yeah. At least for me, it's kind of whenever the muse strikes me, I'm on. I'm like a font of inspiration, and it just won't stop. But I can't make that happen.
Right.
I have to almost stumble upon it. So that throws off my creative rhythm, which in turn, leads to, like you were, kind of talking about, like moments of like, oh man, I got to get this out right now. And then moments of like, I don't know. But yeah, no, I think that's a fun challenge of it, right? Like it means that what we're doing is important to us and absorbing, and we just have to tame the beast a bit.
Something for you to look forward to. I have a game recommendation for you, Jeremy.
Please.
So I have two young boys. I've only played an RPG with one of them so far, and he's 5. I think he was 4 at the time when I last played this game with him, but it's called Amazing Tales, and it's just a very simple system that is easy for kids to grasp. But what's really nice about it, like I said, the whole preparation can be time consuming. And also the thing with kids is if you prepare something for a kid, like there's a good chance they're gonna take it in a very unexpected direction.
Right.
Oh, apparently the mermaids are space mermaids. Okay, let's go with that.
Yep.
Anyway, the materials that they offer around one-page adventure outlines are pretty good for playing with kids. So soon, Emma will be of RPG playing age, and she won't be quite ready for Pericle the Gathering Darkness yet.
Right.
I said we were going to talk about the stress and anxiety angle, but this kind of took a different turn, I think.
Yeah, a little bit. Something that kind of spoke to me, you mentioned, right now with COVID and everything, that spoke really close to me. I was a music teacher for a while. At the very beginning of the pandemic, I was a music teacher. And, my kids, like, there was so much uncertainty. Not that things are, like, cool now, but we at least know more. But, at the very beginnings of the pandemic, my orchestra students, they were just thrown for a complete loop, and, kids who had or were prone to anxiety or panic or worry or stress, plus people who don't typically have to do with that sort of thing, but now you're thrown into a crazy situation and you're at least worrying about stuff. Like I could tell it was terribly hard on these guys. And so
Yeah.
what we did actually was I started a D&D club. And so we all jumped on Roll20. We would have weekly things, and we even extended that into summer after school had stopped, and we played.
All right, so we had some technical difficulties, but we've managed to get reconnected just in time to say thanks for listening and into this episode. So thank you so much, Jeremy, for coming on the show to talk about why we game and how it helps us relax and all that sort of thing. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no, definitely. And thanks for having me. It's a pleasure as always.
Yes, and this isn't the end because we are going to have Jeremy back on to talk about technology and how what that can bring to tabletop gaming. Obviously, with Pericle being a game that has an app that sort of fills in the role of game master in a way. There's an interesting sort of angle that Jeremy can bring to this, but it'll be sort of a brainstorm episode as well as exploring what Pericle does and how it uses technology to cover the possibilities of technology in a analog space tabletop gaming. So I'm looking forward to that discussion.